Hi, my name is Meg McAllister. I'm formerly the Regional Administrator of EPA Region 7. I was appointed by President Biden, and I resigned from my position on January 20th because I was required to with the change in administration. But with a lot of the headlines right now and a lot of the discussion and memos and executive orders related to DEI and environmental justice, I just wanted to share some thoughts about how important those two programs really are, and the staff and everybody who are involved in both DEI and environmental justice. Those two things, so DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, and then environmental justice, which we also call EJ for short. Those things are not about giving handouts to people. They're not about unfairly diverting funds. Really what they are at their core is about making sure that people who have historically been left out of certain things are now included. With DEIA efforts, especially in hiring, we've wanted to make sure that we really are widening the pool of candidates to make sure that we are always finding the best possible candidates and making sure that everyone has a fair chance at getting the job based on their skills and expertise and not based on what they look like, or where they went to school or how much money they have. With environmental justice, ultimately, we're trying to get funding into communities who have historically not been able to access federal funding because they don't have the resources, they don't know what questions to ask, they don't even know who to ask to help them with their problems. And in Region 7, which is where I was the regional administrator, which covers Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and 9 tribal nations, most of our quote unquote communities with EJ concerns, communities with environmental justice concerns, were not necessarily Democratic areas. They're primarily Republican areas in Region 7. And a lot of those communities were small towns, rural communities, some urban areas, but primarily the areas that I visited were small towns and rural communities. I talked to a lot of farmers who dealt with issues, and they're just trying to do the best that they can to earn a living and to be good contributors, good citizens of their own communities. And when they are shut out of that access to federal funding, then it means that they don't get the support that they deserve. Rural communities, which can be, it's not necessarily, environmental justice does not necessarily mean a Black and brown community. It often is a rural, predominantly white community, lower income, perhaps a lower levels of education, that people who are doing their best to support their families and to be good members of their communities. And when they have aging infrastructure, drinking water systems that are in disrepair, and they don't have the funding to repair those systems, it means that those communities have to figure out a different safe drinking water solution. It means that parents are struggling to protect their kids from things like environmental hazards. Lead pollution is a huge issue here in Region 7. If we leave those communities out, it just further it furthers the burden for them. For more generations, they are going to have to suffer when they don't need to, and they shouldn't, because they should have access to that funding. They should have access to that technical assistance. They should have access to the federal employees who can help them and answer their questions and make sure that they know who to go to and what educational resources are available. We should be able to empower communities to find that information and to be able to access it. So I just wanted to share that perspective, because I think that a lot of this is getting lost in the craziness of what's happening in the United States right now, in the craziness of what's happening in the transition to a new administration. And we need to make sure that people understand that DEIA and environmental justice aren't just one thing. It really does impact all of us. So cutting those resources means that we were all going to be impacted.